If you can't beat them, then you pop them. You can't man them, then you mop them. You can't stand them, then you drop them. You pop them, cause we pop them like over red and vodka. Young money, C3, okay, a millionaire. I'm a young money millionaire.
Welcome back to the Daily Stack. Today is Monday, June 29th. The Clarity Act is on life support, and this man knows who is pulling the plug. Joining us today is Rashan Colbert, the U.S. Policy Director at the Crypto Council for Innovation. And there are very few people who can talk about the crypto policy from as many angles as he can. He spent 7 years with Senator Cory Booker's office working on technology, AI, big tech, and digital assets, where he was Booker's lead crypto staffer on the Senate Agriculture Committee. From there, he went on to build the entire policy and advocacy operation at DYDX, one of the largest names in DeFi, taking it from 0 to 1. So he has sat inside the Senate, inside the protocol, and now at the top of the industry coalition. And he's joining us at the moment when the biggest crypto bill in history is sitting on the Senate calendar with the clock ticking, and they're on vacation. So Rashan, welcome to the Daily Stack.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Yes, I think the world wants to know what's going on. I mean, we were a fully Bitcoin podcast. As Bitcoin kept dropping, I started finding more interest in stocks. So we are a Bitcoin show at its core, but we are an attention economy, right? And as Bitcoin's falling, I think more money, as we've seen, has gone into the AI trade, and people are looking at Bitcoin like it's dead, which we've had happen 20,000 times before, right? And everyone keeps calling it dead. But for this, we have the Clarity Act, which is one of the biggest, bills I think that people are waiting for and trying to figure out. So the prediction markets, as of about a month ago, went from 70% of it happening this year to roughly 40% odds. And the Senate, as I just mentioned, left until mid-July. So try to be straight with us here. Is the Clarity Act like slipping away? Is this just calendar noise? Where's your head at?
Yeah, no, great, sort of initial analysis on what's happening. A lot is happening. I think I'll preface everything I say by saying that first, passing legislation is extremely difficult, full stop. No matter sort of, whether it's on something big or something small, something that is, there are a number of consensus things that basically perpetuate existing status quo bills that, those pass without too much hubbub. But anything that has real opinions, that has any level of controversy, or that has significant complexity, the way digital assets policy does, it's just going to be hard no matter what. And then all the way up until the day it's passed, and not only that, but signed into law, it's going to feel difficult. So I'll say that as of right now, no, this process is far, far, far from dead. But, I think anyone who comes on here or you see online saying, hey, I guarantee this is going to happen, be very wary, because it's just tough to figure out what's going to happen. And, it's very much a live exercise.
There's a lot of experts on Twitter, including myself, that come out, especially on like FinTwit or Crypto Twitter.
Sure.
You see all these predictions of where the price of Bitcoin is going to go. People with fake screenshots that they go in and show their accounts to try to get followers. So yes, we'll double down on what you're saying there. Always do your own research and don't just trust random people on Twitter, for sure.
Right, including myself. But I'll try and give some alpha.
So what do you think? And just kind of give us a little bit background, because I think myself included, everyone's kind of reading the headlines. They're not sitting there in these meetings or in DC for that matter, and having conversations at lunch and hearing people at the bars talking about this. So what are the biggest, I guess, points of difference today? Like where are we seeing challenges? What are the main sticking points today that is not allowing this bill to pass?
Sure. Yeah. I'll give a really high level overview kind of what's going on. So the Clarity Act, right, this bill to regulate digital assets, is part of a broader, puzzle of a general regulatory framework for crypto, right? So there's a few pieces. There's regulating stablecoins, right? The Genius Act passed last summer. Great, check one. There's regulating digital commodities, regulating digital securities, and then there's digital assets tax. So the tax, totally separate process. Right now, it's moving forward surprisingly fast on the House side. So that's a kind of dark horse to look at for the policy perspective. And then the Clarity Act regulates digital securities and digital commodities is actually two bills, right? So we have the Clarity Act that, is built off of another bill of the same name that passed in the House of Representatives last summer, right? But the Clarity Act that we're looking at now is a Senate bill in the Senate Banking Committee, and that focuses on securities, right? So what does it look like to issue tokens? What does it look like to raise money using those tokens? Who is the primary regulator? Is it the SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission? And then there's also an Agriculture Committee bill, which is called the Digital Commodity Intermediaries Act, right? So that bill right now is looking at commodities, and it's mainly looking at jurisdiction of the CFTC, right? So what are the authorities that they have, making sure that they have the resources, and it really is looking at doing something brand new, which is giving the CFTC jurisdiction over digital asset spot markets. So right now, that's a generally unregulated market, except for unfairness, deception, fraud, etc. There's always a regulatory hook for that, but the actual market is unregulated, and specifically, it's looking at the intermediaries, right, as it says in the bill. So at the exchanges, at the brokers, at the dealers, looking at what are their disclosures, what are their responsibilities, capital requirements, all the things like that. So I'll give another kind of map of what's happened. In January, the Senate Agriculture Committee did a markup, right, where they could vote at the committee level on the Digital Commodities Intermediaries Act, so DCIA. That passed, but in a completely bipartisan vote. And I think you mentioned at the top that there has to be a certain number of Democrats to come on board if we're going to see this pass the full Senate and have an attempt to pass in the law. So, okay, so it had a vote, it passed, but we're going to have to go back to that. And then in the Banking Committee, the Clarity Act, it passed in May with a bipartisan majority, right? So a couple of Democrats did sign on, and a few more said that with some additional changes, they'll be ready to vote for it on the floor when these two bills are put together. But since that vote was partisan, right, only Republicans in January on the ag piece, right now the ag committee members, the majority and minority, are working together to try and figure out if they can figure out some points of compromise in order to be able to report out a bill that could receive sufficient Democratic votes. So those issues are ones that are looking at the regulation of these intermediaries at exchanges, brokers, and dealers.
Now I'm realizing that this is an election year and the midterms are coming up. How does that throw a wrench into all this? Because it seems like the House is going to go back to the Democrats. Senate's kind of up in the air. People think it could go either direction. How would that play a role in all of this, if at all?
Sure. No, politics are always present, sometimes in the background and sometimes right up front. And in this process, the reason why we're having this conversation, is because of the very specific alignment of leadership in the Senate, in the House, and in the administration, right? So there's the right people in place who want to see a crypto bill pass, right? And then same thing with, public concern for these issues. Like there's just a lot of momentum driving this forward. And we're in the right time. Earlier this year, around in the spring at CCI, we were constantly saying the time is now, to try and help people understand the sense of urgency. And it truly is this moment, because the later we get in this year, the closer and closer we get toward November, toward the elections, the less people will really want to take a vote on a potentially controversial issue. Right. And so the elections are right front and center. and are playing a big role. And that's one reason why we really want to get this through the Senate by the end of July. So before the big summer recess, which is in August when everyone goes back home to campaign.
Mm-hmm. I think we need around 7 Democrats to get to 60 votes. I think you mentioned there's like 2 on record. So who are the other 5? What are and talk about like more of those demands. You mentioned that like a few other Democrats would come over if X, Y, and Z happen. What is X, Y, and Z in this case?
Sure. So I think to really get all the Democrats we need, a number of things have to happen. So on that banking title, the Clarity Act that passed the committee in May, there were really some people who kind of were hedging their position a little bit, specifically around national security related issues, national security, illicit finance, and others. And there's a number of provisions in the bill that look at these topics, right? So, and that's one of the things that this bill does. It really helps give law enforcement the tools that they need to go after bad actors, which I think is also very much supported by all the people who are building positively in the space, right?
Yep.
It's like much more capital will come in, more attention if people can kind of really get their arms around the safety and security of the ecosystem. So that's one of the key provisions. People are looking at that. And then lots of things in that ag piece. So there's also 2 really, really big looming topics that are beyond the sort of minutia topics and for policy. There are 2 more political pieces. One is the state of the CFTC. Right now, the CFTC has 1 commissioner, and that's the chair, and it's a Republican. And so it's supposed to be a body of 5 in a bipartisan group, 3 in the majority, 2 in the minority. And so, this is an unusual time in the CFTC's history. And, I think it really doesn't give the Democrats in this case, the minority, the comfort that they need, that there's going to be the adequate oversight at the CFTC as they go through a rulemaking process after a bill's passed. So that's one. There needs to be some progress at the CFTC. And then 2, there's a lot of concern with the president and other elected officials and the sort of, what are the ethics guidelines that might be in place. And so these are 2 things that, are being negotiated by like very, very small groups of people with leadership and the administration and others. But I think the folks who are kind of in the minutia of the bill are really kind of focused on some other policy issues. But those 2 things are looming. And I think those are some of the big ones that Democrats need in order to get there.
Yeah, you brought up a good point with our president, who's very polarizing, to say the least. You have people that we call it TDS, that just he could cure cancer and they would hate him for not curing AIDS or something. Like there are certainly people in that bucket. And then there are people that, and then there's citizens that also disagree. I don't think the president should necessarily be out there pumping his own bags in any capacity, like anyone should, right? So everyone has an opinion on this. You mentioned that may be holding some of that up. I was talking about this actually with my friends this weekend, and I was like, maybe Trump's like being, it's kind of insider trading, but it's not, because he's going out there and telling people what stocks he's basically buying. Whereas, Pelosi and we actually had the founder of the Pelosi tracker on our podcast a while back, and they're creating autopilot, which is a really cool, democratizes finance in the sense where it shows like, hey, this senator is on this bill and he bought, so you should probably pay attention. I don't know what details you can get into in that, but what is some of that fine print in layman's term that they're looking to accomplish with the president or with any politician, I guess?
Sure. Yeah, I think it is likely going to be a provision that, is comprehensive and holistic and really looks to not only target the president, but make sure that we have, some rules in place for the entire for elected officials and potentially their and their affiliates and in the way that they look at the crypto ecosystem. I think because, I think kind of an aside, crypto sort of gets obviously a bad rap for many things, including, kind of sometimes slightly less than transparent relationships and affiliations that may be having a big impact on the market, and or potentially bad actors for using technology, using the assets. And I think that okay, like some of that's happening, but for the most part, the inherent transparency of the blockchain is really a great tool, right? That I think has been used by internationally, has been used by United States law enforcement to hold people accountable and to track, illicit flows of value. And so I'll just put that to the side. But I think that we haven't seen what text might look like. There have been proposals over the past year or so, but there's a smaller group that's working really hard. That's a bipartisan group trying to figure out what's something that can really pass, right? Listen, that will have enough teeth to get the folks in the minority who want to hold elected officials accountable, but also, wouldn't it be maybe overly punitive or too unfair to crypto as an asset class, and to make it have totally different standards than other asset classes. So I think it will likely look at ownership, right, of different business entities, and then try and bring some additional transparency to affiliations as well.
Yeah, I had John Deaton on about a year, maybe almost 2 years ago now. And he was talking, about Senator Warren, and you look at some of these folks that you wonder if their affiliation with the big banks, and we're seeing that with AI too. So there's like a few big technologies that are happening, and we're living in I call it amazing times, that we're going to look back in history and be like, oh wow, these were like two of the most influential things. And even with now, I'm thinking of like peptides too, with like the big pharma companies you're going against now, like crypto is going against the big banks that have tons of money in DC and lobbyists that are pushing that. So walk us through like the stable coin, because I know that's a big piece of it. Sure. The stable coin yield, the banks and industry have been at war with this, whether platforms can pay rewards on stablecoin balances. And I think a lot of it's been like semantics of what do we call it, yield or rewards. For the average person just holding a stablecoin, what's truly at stake here? And how did the industry get a real win versus a watered down compromise?
Yeah, so I think, with all things, the way I kind of try and approach the way I explain things is like, what's the story? What happened? How did we get to now? And so I think we'll rewind the clock a little bit to last year. In July, the Genius Act, bill to regulate permitted payment stablecoins in the United States, was passed and signed into law by the president. That bill was the first one that looked to address this kind of yield interest issue, right? And obviously, say from a crypto standpoint, it's all about transparency. People know how these products are put together. They know that yield is generated. And so thus people like the idea of figuring out how to share some of that yield with the end user, with the holder, right? But there are, specific concerns from the folks in the banking industry and others who are looking after the broader health of the financial ecosystem and are wary of disrupting things too much too quickly. And so what was agreed upon in the Genius Act was a restriction that the issuer of these stablecoins could not directly pay interest that they accrued through their process, through the structure of the product, to the holders, simply for holding the asset. Okay, so again, that was kind of not what the crypto industry wanted.
Right.
And then maybe it wasn't exactly what the banks wanted either. They wanted something even, stronger. I'm not exactly sure how that would be stronger, but they wanted something stronger. And so that was passed into law. Again, passed by a bipartisan majority in the House and the Senate, signed by the president, working through the regulatory process to be implemented. Late last year and early this year, and the banking industry came forward and said, hey, we think that the crypto folks are exploiting a loophole that was created by that legislation. And companies are having these new products, like these earn products that allow, or rewards products that allow folks to receive some level of reward for holding a certain type of stablecoin on a platform, right? And those are great. And I think the industry looked at that as an incentive, just like there's credit card points, that people can have, which essentially incentivizes you to hold or to use some company's credit card. And so felt a little bit unfairly targeted there. So then there was another back and forth negotiation that yielded yet another compromise that looks to, again, narrow the specific characteristics of how rewards can be shared. And it looked at, looking at economic equivalency and making sure that this wasn't something that was exactly like a bank account, right? The way that banks pay interest for deposits, and really was predicated upon usage, right? So great, you're spending or you're transacting, and maybe you can get some rewards that way. So that, again, that compromise was struck, led by two senators, Senator Tillis from North Carolina, Republican, and Democrat also Brooks, a new member of the Senate. And they agreed, hey, we've got a deal, but we have seen as of late that there are still folks in the banking industry looking to challenge even that compromise. So I don't know where that's going to end up, and it's still a little bit of a live issue. But from my perspective, from policy perspective, when both sides are a little bit unhappy, you've usually found a good compromise, and I think that's where we are now.
Yeah, it is crazy because you look at the yields on holding money in a bank account, and you're, for people that are in the crypto industry, it's like, wait a second, you're losing money by having money in the bank today.
Right.
With inflation, and you get a 0.1% yield. Even like, Goldman Sachs, I think Marcus was the first one to do like a 5%. And now I think that's now even down to like 3% or something. So yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely something interesting. I think we're a Bitcoin heavy crowd. I think a lot of our audience is Bitcoin. How secure do you feel about like self-custody, the right to hold your own keys? Do you think that will survive? I always go back to, it was 1933 when they came in, or 50, I think it was 1933. I could be wrong, and you probably know the answer, but when they came and took gold, right? And is that going to happen with those at some point? Is something of that sort even a realm of possibility for if you don't hold your self-custody? Can they go in and take that from Coinbase or freeze accounts? And I know they can freeze accounts and freeze wallets or track wallets and flag wallets today, right? So make sure OFAC. I actually just talked to another guy who looks, because Bitcoin, and a lot of people don't think about this, but like each individual Bitcoin is actually worth either less or more than like what you see on the screen for Bitcoin, based off of how early it was, how early it was created. And then if it's touched OFAC. And so his whole thing is, and he's probably trying to create laws around this at some point, but no one wants to hold OFAC coins if it was touched by something, illegal or illicit. Right. So I guess the question here would be like, is that even possible? Are you one of the, you came from like the DeFi space. Do you think at some point the government could come in and say, hey, we're going to confiscate the Bitcoin for national security reasons or anything? I mean, this is my conspiracy angle. The one hard question I'll give you is that.
Yeah, sure. I think, of course, these are fair questions. I think that any healthy democracy should always be questioning the motivations and the incentives and the powers, right, of the government. Like, what do they really want to do? What are they after? What's going to be enshrined in legislation? I think that's one of the interesting things about this bill. It is, it's comprehensive, right? And there's so many different provisions in this bill. And there is a piece in the bill that looks to affirm the right to self-custody, right? So this is a really big deal. I mean, this has been a piece of legislation that has been alive for several years. Used to be like a standalone bill, but has been integrated into this broader market structure passage over a couple of iterations in the bill. And so that, along with a few other things, looks to protect the sort of technological innovation piece, right? And the ability for folks to self-custody. I think that's really, really important. Obviously, that's one of the new awesome things that crypto and that Bitcoin enables, the ability for folks to hold their own digital property. It's really special. And there are a number of legislators who recognize that that's important. So that, along with many other things, is why, again, like the time is now, and it's worth figuring out a path to pass this bill. And I'll touch on another piece you mentioned, like with DeFi. There's a piece called the Blockchain Regulatory Certainty Act, right? Okay. And so that looks to protect developers, right? The actual people with their hands in the keyboard, writing the code, and deploying the code, and supporting the infrastructure that allows these blockchains to develop, to flourish, and to keep running. Right? So really, really critical folks for the infrastructure of the ecosystem. And it specifically looks at money transmission, right? Which is just the way that value moves via technology, and make sure that these folks who are truly neutral infrastructure providers and developers are not classified as money transmitters, right? Which completely changes the way that the regulatory system would look at them. I think this is also one of the most important parts of the bill. It's also being, there are details, right? The devil is always in the details with legislation, and people are thinking critically about what that provision looks like. There's a version both in the banking title and in the ag title. But that's another piece that kind of looks at that technological and innovation part of the bill. Oh, hey, I can't hear you, man. I think we might be having a technical.
There we go. Can you hear me
now? Yep. Got you.
All right. I was asking here, I'll repeat the questions just because I don't think you heard. So like, how do you write rules even for non-custodial software for Bitcoin? I'm talking about with no CEO, no front door to send a subpoena to. How much of this bill, if anything, is related to Bitcoin? What's the conversation around Bitcoin specifically? Because again, Satoshi, no one knows who he is. People think they do, but like there's no one to send a subpoena to. There's no one to, and it's very much international at this point and very similar. I think there's a lot of parallels actually to Bitcoin and to crypto as there is to AI, right? Because you could shut it down, but then China's going to take off with it, right? And especially with like AI, and then it's a national defense issue. We just saw actually with Iran, they were going to only accept Bitcoin to go through the Strait of Hormuz, so very fascinating times. But what do you like? What involved with Bitcoin is the Clarity Act, if anything at all? And then what are the conversations around how to regulate Bitcoin specifically?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting and very useful question. I think that one of the key things that the bill does, is create this, again, clarity as opposed to ambiguity regarding who is the regulator, right? Who has jurisdiction in a specific subject or asset class. So I think there's two, like I said, there's two key parts: securities piece, commodities piece. And while it has been generally agreed that Bitcoin and maybe a few other assets are commodities, I think that this bill once it passes, will make that very clear. Right. And so that completely changes the sort of regulatory posture, or clarifies the regulatory posture toward Bitcoin. I think as a commodity, it's understood that, okay, there isn't going to be this certain type of regulatory structure that looks at individuals, that looks at issuers, that looks at companies. It's going to be much more focused on the market as a whole, right? And how the participants within that market operate. And then, and look at maybe the intermediaries who look to, kind of facilitate that market. So at the exchanges, at the brokers and dealers, right? So how they deal with Bitcoin, ETH, a long tail of other assets, be kind of coming from that commodities piece. And so I think that's a big deal. Whereas before, with this ambiguous state, we had quote unquote regulation by enforcement, right? And so builders, whether they were developers, infrastructure providers, or people creating a startup and really trying to build a business, people didn't really know where they stood, and so now they will. Now they will. They'll know who to go to, and just how what sorts of boxes they need to check when creating these, creating new businesses, creating intermediaries. But I think that this bill is very pro Bitcoin, and I think that it's one that folks who are fans of the technology writ large, whether of all crypto, but specifically Bitcoin, should.
There's a quieter provision around the digital asset treasury companies, which have not been doing so well recently, but a lot of our audience is sitting on them, myself included. And is there any provisions around digital asset treasury companies? How are they looking at those? And if there's anything, I guess, the provisions in there around digital asset treasury companies.
Yeah, I'd be. There's potentially a few things that could address DATCOs. So I'd be interested if there's a specific provision, and if you have the citation for it, and we can talk about it. But, no, all good. I think though, this bill really will affect the entire ecosystem. And in particular, like I was talking about this kind of security commodity piece already, DATCOs are, obviously, for the most part, they're publicly traded companies. And so they issue a security. So they usually take a commodity, bundle it, issue security, issue further securities as equity in order to raise money so that they can buy more of these commodities. So they are firmly, even though they deal with assets that are regulated as commodities in many cases, these companies issue securities in the case of stock, and will be overseen by the SEC. So I think that clarifying the way that a key piece would be clarifying custody, right? There are key custody provisions for intermediaries in the bill. Just looking at the way that they deal with that, looking at the way that they deal with their leadership, right? And clarifying the disclosures, clarifying the officers who are there, who are in charge with compliance, making sure that their reporting regarding their assets is all very clear. But this bill definitely is not focused on DATCOs, but I think that they will be impacted to some degree, and I think in a positive way, right? By creating more understanding of what's possible and what their requirements are.
Probably my last question, and maybe we go for a few others, but you've worked on AI and big tech even before crypto. So similar background to me as I was in technology, fell in love with Bitcoin, ended up working at a custodian. And so professionally, an investor before that. As I mentioned, I think there's a lot of parallels here, and AI is racing now towards the same regulatory reckoning. We had Dario from Anthropic, which is it's a whole nother topic, but I've never seen a CEO scare people away from AI. It's so interesting because like it always is like AI is coming for you, and then it's like AI, and then Anthropic's like going after and building all these different projects, and then they're also trying to sell the B2B, but they're like killing them at the same time. So, anyways, whole nother topic there. But is the crypto policy playbook a template for AI? We already saw the U.S. government come down on Anthropic, maybe for national defense reasons, which are fair. I just saw something yesterday that said Mythos, like behind closed doors, they told everyone, like they're like showing them how they could empty a bank account, which that's scary, right? And if that's true, and you get that in the hands of the masses, there are bad actors in the world, and someone could figure that out and do that, right? So there should be regulation around that at some point, but it's stifling innovation. If other countries are doing this anyways, it's the same thing that I always think about with like the global warming piece that happened. It doesn't matter as long as China is still the manufacturer for the world. Like it still goes up in the air. It's just not the US doing it or France doing it, but that's going up in the air. So like where I'm going with this is like these policies are great if you do it in the US, but if the rest of the world is not doing it, then we're coming from a place of weakness. So I don't have the answers, but I'm just laying it out there that this is the conversation back and forth. But what do you think AI can learn from this conversations that are happening with crypto as they start to go in front of DC and start to figure this out? Because I think, and we talk about both topics here on the show, but I think the AI one's even more complicated overall. But what do you think they can learn? Anything, maybe we have you back to talk about that once those.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Phone keeps going on off mute. I'm good now. What could they learn? What can the AI industry learn from the conversations that are happening around crypto today?
Yeah, a lot, I guess, is the short answer. But you're totally right to be thinking about this, and I've been thinking about AI policy for a long time, and also thinking about how it combines with crypto and what even the lessons are from this process, which I'll reiterate, we're still not at the end of. It's like we could be almost there, with getting this bill passed, but we still have some uphill portions to climb and to figure out. But I think that one of the key things that is, atmospherically, the United States has been kind of put itself in a bad position, right? Even though much of this technology, digital assets, Bitcoin, etc., was either invented by American innovators, or really started to grow here at the very, very beginning, but are very confusing and at times adversarial regulatory environment pushed a lot of that development offshore. And we've done a bunch of research at CCI and looked at these numbers, and like it's real. I think a lot of people talk about innovation, and and that can be used as sort of a red herring. It's like, oh, your innovation is going elsewhere, and you can ask, say, well, why? When we have the best and deepest, most liquid capital markets in the world, that's true. But people are finding other opportunities, and other jurisdictions are very welcoming of these innovators and say, hey, like, we'll figure this out. We'll build a regulatory framework, and we'll tell you when you're in bounds and when you're not, so that you can have some level of predictability and build here. So that was a major, kind of faux pas by the U.S. government and regulatory ecosystem to not move quickly. And now we're kind of playing catch up. Fortunately, I think it's still within the amount of time that we need in order to, bring a lot of that back on shore and to, own a lot of the future. But so that's one lesson. AI is very different because, sure, this generative AI explosion has happened over the last several years. As the foundation models started to develop and do amazing things, and then you put like a chatbot interface on it and you give access to everyone. It's like, okay, that's changed everything over the last 5 years in a really powerful way. But before that, the actual pursuit for a general intelligence is decades old, right? And we've been having these conversations about what's going to happen when we have this advanced artificial intelligence. What are we going to do? And it's been sufficiently complex from social perspectives, from economic angles, and from law enforcement angles as well, that we haven't done anything about it. And what's really hard about this problem is that the regulators, right, it's a finite amount of people in these agencies, like they're professionals, they're very technical, they can act in certain circumstances, but the AI question or set of questions is one that really needs to happen in a conversation at the legislative level, right? The legislature is our representation, as a society, as a nation, for the government. And so they get to choose. That's why law trumps regulations, right? And so that conversation has moved in fits and starts, but for whatever reason, I think hasn't been as fulsome as it needs to be. And I think that that's what we really saw with crypto. We saw the industry figuring out ways to align. It's still a very kind of rambunctious industry in many ways, but where alignment was possible, folks have come together and have been very active in making sure that our message was heard, that we're aligning on specific use cases, and then pushing for a specific goal. I think that there are many different goals in the AI ecosystem, but it's still hard to see from either industry groups or academia or whatever what the specific things are. And so I think some real work on alignment has to be done.
And how do they, I'm going to make an analogy that you've probably never heard, but how do they, and I'll preface it as, how do they keep up with the speed of technology? And I remember watching, it was a Chris Hansen episode about, and they cracked this guy that was selling bath salts. And he's like, I don't care. He's like, even if the government figures it out, I'll change one thing and then that's no longer illegal.
Right.
So similarly with technology, how do they keep up? Like they write the bill, but in the meantime, other technology has been built up and then they go back. So they can't like necessarily keep up with the speed of it. How do, and maybe this is for crypto and with AI, how much ahead are they thinking? And like, how do they get the smartest people in the room that know all this backdoor policies that people or backdoor technology that people are currently creating? That's like, I guess, one piece of it. And then the other piece I'd say is like what's the new model? GLM, or there's one in China that just came out that everyone's loving. And so then if we're not going to be able to get on Mythos, like, do they then go to China, or if someone else in India comes up with something, how do we prevent the future of technology and keep up with it in real time?
No, this is a tough question. I'm assuming it's one that we'll always be wrestling with. But when you're writing legislation, it really is a creative exercise. Right? Obviously, it's a very detailed technical task, but it's really creative. It's like, what can you figure out to loop in or loop out of the legislation? And at the beginning of every bill is a definition section. And the definition section, they take a long time, sometimes years, to really coalesce around the way that you describe something. And that usually ends up determining what is in the scope of the bill and what is outside of the scope of the bill. So say with the way that blockchains are defined in the Clarity Act, they are really made to not really adhere exactly to any specific network, but to get the general concept in a way that is firm enough to be fully recognizable as modern blockchains, but that have enough flexibility so that versions in the future that are looking to really do essentially the same thing are captured within the bill. And I think the same thing has happened when you're thinking about artificial intelligence and AI policy. How do you structure these definitions? How do you structure the provisions in the bill so that they do think ahead? And so that is possible to do. And folks will argue both sides, that we should make it very narrow to things that we can see or that we should make it as expansive as possible to things in the future. But it's possible to think about that. And then you have to really think about principles, right? So what are the broad things that we want? Obviously, if you have an automated decision system or decision-making system that's propagated by AI, there's a million ways that you can structure that technologically. But if you determine that it's important to have some degree of final human say or human in the loop or whatever, then it may not matter exactly what the ultimate system actually looks like if you believe that principally that's important. And then you can go to court to argue about the fine details, because that's what the courts are for, to help us interpret these things. But I think that if that's what legislators want, is to think about the future, they have the capacity to do that. They have the tools to do it.
How long till we have AI writing these bills? I'm just thinking, because you look at these things and they're like stacks and stacks, or you can just press a button, have it done. Now I'm curious, is AI getting brought in? Like, are people using AI like within DC to write this? And is there laws around that? Like, you can't use AI to write a bill? Or this is a fun
It's
question.
interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think that there's any law on that yet. And I'll say writing a bill on the Hill is an interesting process, and many cooks in the kitchen, right, to get anything done. But staff and legislators will come up with their ideas, and they'll think about the kind of contours of it, and they'll pass these off to legislative counsel, right? So lawyers who are specifically trained in interpreting and translating ideas into legislative text, right? So they'll go through this process that I don't know what that looks like, but we used to send them the email, and I'd get a great draft back that looked like a bill, and they would think through the relevant law that you might be amending with a given idea that might already exist, or how to phrase something to give it maximal impact. So I think already having this multi-tiered step is one, like, sure, someone could insert some generative AI somewhere in that process, whether just to streamline the process of transforming these ideas into legislative text, or to to just make your thinking clearer. And I think that wouldn't, from my perspective, and who am I? But from my perspective, I don't think that would be some great sin. But I do think that having this multi-tiered step, and then after Leg Council goes back to the office, they think about it. They work with outside folks. They work with other offices. They might work with regulators, with the administration, to keep honing and crafting a bill. So anything that really gets to the Senate floor, the House floor, the president's desk has been so critically analyzed and thought about from so many perspectives that, while humans aren't perfect at all, it has been stress tested to figure out that it at least is getting at the perspective we want. And I think there's probably a role for generative AI within that process, and it would still go through a very, very rigorous screening process. So I think that that's okay.
Awesome. Well, Rashan, thank you so much for coming through the gauntlet and answering all these questions and giving us insight into what's actually happening in DC. Because I, for one, and I run, a Bitcoin AI stock show, half the time I'm, trying to discern the headlines and dig in. So it's very helpful to have someone that's in the weeds every single day looking at this. And we'll definitely have to have you back on at some point, but I really appreciate you coming on. And for those that are watching, we're going to come back here with a new stock show. We don't have a name yet, but I have two of my good friends that are going to be coming on and at 1:30 Eastern. But Rashan, thank you so much again. And want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors over at Arch Lending. You did the hard part. You held Bitcoin through the storm, and we're in it right now. The last thing you want to do is sell at this point. And real life does still cost money. You may have an old tax bill, a big opportunity, a house. You may be looking for a car. That is why Arch exists. You borrow against your Bitcoin instead of selling it. You get the cash today. You never trigger a taxable event. The collateral stays 100% yours in a qualified insured custody account. Check them out today, archlending.com/daily stack. They already do have the lowest rates in Bitcoin lending, but if you do the /daily stack, another 1% off. So very good. And we will be back in about 5 minutes.
To the hip hop, the hip it to the hip hop. You don't stop the rocker to the bang bang boogie. Say up jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie to beat. Now what you hear is not a test. I'm rapping to the beat, and me, the groove, and my friends are gonna try to move your feet. You see, I am Wonder Mike, and I like to say hello to the black, to the white, the red, and the brown, and the purple and yellow. But first I gotta bang bang the boogie to the boogie. Say up jump the boogie to the bang bang boogie. Let's rock. You don't stop, rock the rhythm that'll make your body rock. Well, so far you've heard my voice, but I brought two friends along. And next on the mic is my man Hank. Come on, Hank, sing that song.
Check it out, I'm the CASN, the OVA, and the rest is FLY. You see, I go by the code of the doctor of the mix, and these reasons I'll tell you why. You see, I'm 6'1", and I'm tons of fun, and I dress to a T. You see, I got more clothes than Muhammad Ali, and I dress so viciously. I got bodyguards, I got two big cars that definitely ain't the whack. I got a Lincoln Continental and a sunroof Cadillac. So after school, I take a dip in the pool, which is really on the wall. I got a color TV so I can see the Knicks play basketball. Him and talking about checkbook, that it costs more money than a sucker could ever spend. But I wouldn't give a sucker or a punk from the rock and not a dime till I made it again. Everybody go, hotel, motel, what you gonna do today? Is I'm gonna get a fly girl, gonna get some spank and drive off in a death OJ. Everybody go, hotel, what you gonna do?
Well, it's on and on and on and on and on. The beat don't stop until the break of dawn. I said a M-A-S, a T-E-R, a G with a double E. I said I go by the unforgettable name of the man they call a Master G. Well, my name is known all over the world by all the foxy ladies and the pretty girls. I'm going down in history as the baddest rapper that ever could be. Now I'm feeling the highs and you're feeling the lows. The beat starts getting into your toe. You start popping your fingers and stomping your feet and moving your body while you're sitting and you're sitting. Then damn, you start doing the freak. I said bam, right out of your seat. There you throw your hands high in the air. You're rocking to the rhythm, shake your dairy air. You're rocking to the beat without a care. Cruise the short shot MCs for the affair. Now I'm not as tall as the rest of the gang, but I rap to the beat just the same. I got a little face and a pair of rhyme eyes. All I'm here to do, ladies, is hypnotize. Sing it on and on and on and on and on. The beat don't stop until the break of dawn. I sing it on and on and on and on and on like a hot butter. The pop, the pop, the pop, give it, pop, the pop, pop. You don't dare stop or come alive, y'all. Give me what you got. I guess by now you can take a hunch and find that I am the baby of the bunch, but that's okay. I still keep in stride, cause all I'm here to do is just a wiggle your behind. Sing it on and on and on and on. The beat don't stop until the break of dawn. I sing it on and on and on and on and on. Rock, y'all. Throw it on the floor. I'm gonna freak you here, I'm gonna freak you there. I'm gonna move you out of this atmosphere, cause I'm one of a kind and I'll shock your mind. I put the jiggles in your behind. I say the 1, 2, 3, 4, come on, girls, get it on the floor. Come alive, y'all, give me what you got, cause I'm guaranteed to make you rock. I said 1, 2, 3, 4, tell me one to Mike, what are you waiting for? To the hip hop, the hippie to the hippie, the hip hop, you don't stop, rock it to the bang, bang the boogie, say up, jump the boogie to the rhythm of the boogie beat. Well, skittle bebop, we rock a Scooby-Doo, and guess what, America, we love you, cause you rock in a row with us so much so, you can rock till you're 101 years old. I don't mean to brag, I don't mean to boast, but we're like hot butter on a breakfast toast. Rock it out, a baby bubba to the boogie, bang bang the boogie to the beat. Beat is so unique. Come on, everybody, and dance to the beat. Hip hop, you don't stop. Rock it out, baby, bubba to the boogity bang bang, the boogie to the boogity beat. I say I can't wait to the end of the week when I rap it to the rhythm of a groovy beat and attempt to raise your body heat or just blow your mind so with that you can't speak or do a thing but I rock and shuffle your feet and later change up to a dance called the freak. And when you finally do come into your rhythmic beat, rest a little while so you don't get weak. I know a man in Hank, he has more rhymes than a serious bank, so come on, Hank, I'll sing that song until the rhythm of the boogie to bang bang the bomb.
When I'm imp, the dimp, the ladies pimp, the women fight for my delight, but I'm the grand master with the 3 MCs that shock the house for the young ladies. And when you come inside into the front, you do the freak spank, or do the bump, and when the sucker MCs try to prove a point with Trevor's trio, or when the serious joiner from sun to sun and from day to day, I sit down and write a brand new rhyme because they say that miracles never cease. I've created a devastating masterpiece. I'm gonna rock the mic so you can't resist. Everybody, I say it goes like this. While I was coming home late one dark afternoon, reporter stopped me for an interview. She said she's heard stories and she's heard fables that are vicious on the mic and the turntable. This young reporter I did adore, so I rocked the vicious rhyme like I never did before. She said, damn fly guy, I'm in love with you. And Casanova legend must have been true. I said, by the way, baby, what's your name? Said I go by the name Lois Lane, and you can be my boyfriend, you surely can. Just let me quit my boyfriend called Superman. I said, he's a fairy, I do suppose, flying through the air in pantyhose. He may be very sexy or even cute, but he looks like a sucker in a blue and red suit. I said, you need a man who's got finesse and his whole name across his chest. He may be able to fly all through the night, but can he rock a party till the early light? He can't satisfy you with his little worm, but I can bust you out with my super sperm. I go do it, I go do it, I go do it, do it, do it. And I'm here, and I'm there. I'm Big Bang Hank, I'm everywhere. I just throw your hands up in the air and party harder like you just don't care. Let's do it. Don't stop, y'all. Take a talk, y'all. You don't stop. Go home, tell, motel. And what you gonna do today? Someone get a fly girl, gonna get some spank and drive off in a death OJ. Everybody go home, tell, motel, Holiday Inn. You say if your girl starts acting up, then you take a friend. I say skip say I can't fit them all inside my OJ, so I just take half and bust them out. I give the rest of them after tea so he can shock the house.
It was 12 o'clock one Friday night. I was rocking to the beat, feeling alright. Everybody was dancing on the floor, doing all the things they never did before. And then this fly girl with a sexy lead, she came into the bar, she came into the scene. As she traveled deeper inside the room, all the fellas checked out her white ass shoe. She came up to the table, looked into my eyes, then she turned around and shook her behind. So I said to myself, it's time for me to release my vicious rhyme. I call my masterpiece. And now people in the house, this is just for you. A little rap to make you boogaloo. Now the group here is called Phase 2. And let me tell you something, we're a hell of a crew. Once a week, we're on the street just to cutting the jams and making it free. For you to party, got to have the mood to will get right down and give you a do it. For you to dance, you got to be high, so we'll get right
We're
down and make it right.
wrapping
now,
up the intro, which is now the outro, the intro to
rocking the fan. But let me tell you something, there's still one fact, that to have a party, got to have a rap. So when the party's over.
Alrighty, let's rock and roll, boys. Let's do this and let's do this. Give me 1 second. Jody, if you're still on here, help me out. Little technical difficulties. Give me 1 second. My computer is acting funky. All right, there we go. And I need to update this. First time with the new show, so give me 1 more second. And there we go. Update title. I need to refresh that. Anyways, welcome to our first show together, boys. I'm excited. We got my boy Joey Salitro here from the Stocktwits team. And I don't know if you want us to go by your real name, JFDI on Twitter. I won't dox unless you want to dox yourself, but welcome, boys. We are excited to talk stocks. And he's the new Tony now, Joey. We got to, maybe it is the new pounding the table. We'll have to come up with a fun name for the show. But JFDI, why don't you introduce yourself? So we brought Joey on a few times. I think the audience knows him now, but quickly introduce yourself.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. Name's Nick. I met Joey kind of just through Stocktwits. I hopped on Stocktwits back in 2009, 2010. So we didn't really have much of a FinTwit community quite back then, just being that it was kind of the birth of FinTwit. So anyways, I've been around the block here and there. I'm primarily a technical trader. If you follow me on Stocktwits, you'll kind of see that like pretty much 90% of my shit is looking for technical patterns, and the other 10% is me just kind of running my mouth, talking about whatever. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, you wouldn't be a true FinTwitter if you didn't run your mouth a little bit, and you got to throw some screenshots in there as well. And Joey, for those that may be new and haven't met you before, give us a quick background on yourself.
Yeah, so I've been an equity analyst since 2013, trading since March 2009. Just very lucky timing there. I was previously at the Motley Fool, Market Realist, did some freelancing for Kiplinger 24/7. I've been any website that writes about stocks, I've pretty much written for them. And yeah, I'm more on the fundamental side. So what I love talking to Nick about is when he sees these technical breakouts and it's a fundamentally sound company, that's when, I'll make the position a little bit larger than usual.
Mm-hmm. And you were famous for teaching me something that I should have listened to you on. I had MSTR at 290, or you said it was like even ahead of 290. You said it's going to 290. I didn't listen. Then you told me it was going to 190. I didn't listen. Then you told me it was going to go to 90. Still didn't listen. So I'm sitting on that. So that's probably the last time we'll talk about MSTR for a while here. But what are you guys looking at right now in the markets? We were texting earlier, and I was up decent, down decent, up decent. So that's been pretty choppy. I've been doing a podcast for the past hour and a half, so haven't been looking at the markets. But where are we at right now?
I mean, I came in today kind of wanting to pound the table on the hack names. I thought both CrowdNet, Palo Alto, they were all kind of setting up, honestly, one of the most kind of basic technical patterns out there, just an ABCD leg up. And anyways, that's how I came into today, was looking to pound the table on those, and I've more or less done that.
Yeah, you know what's weird is you're even seeing some of the smaller players in cybersecurity take off. Like I saw, I don't know, it was Wall Street, Jesus, and a bunch of other people talking about Tenable, which then I had to check. It's up 24% the past week. You even got, the serial disappointment Sentinel-1 is up 16% the last week. But then, the typical leaders, your Crowd, Palo Alto is just absolutely raging. Cloudflare, Datadog, again.
It's a shorter term momentum trade, really, especially just looking at it from where we're at right now. I feel kind of like, taking a more, let's just say, holistic top-down approach is kind of more in alignment with what I think that you're looking for when you ask me, Joey, because it's like you're kind of a longer-term investor. And it's I would imagine you're looking for, low risk kind of backfilling entries as opposed to kind of like buying strength. Is that?
Yeah. So, and
yes and no. I mean, we to his question though, real quick, Joey. I think we bring, this is, you want the alpha, right? And so in any way, I do weekly options far more often than I should. Sure. Joey always kicks me and says, KISS, keep it simple, stupid, and find the stocks and let them play out versus fighting against premiums and news that can happen in a week or so. So either direction, you guys are the new co-host of this show. And so it's your show. Yeah, let's do it.
When the trend is up go ahead.
Yeah, see, the one thing I don't like about focusing strictly on fundamentals and finding the crossover is when you see breakdowns in great companies, like the chart will be super ugly and that'll keep you away. But, Axon is a prime example, which I know you kind of flipped to liking of late because, it found its bottom and started trending upwards. But what I like is when you see this rapid multiple contraction because of software, but this was almost guilty by association in the software space. And when you find those like disconnects between what the market's doing and reality, and this is something, I don't know if you guys know Chris Camillo, but he's fantastic.
100 times on this show recently.
I love that guy because he's got the right mindset. Like if you love a company, so he loves Amazon, he loved it at 220. When it goes to 200, he's like, he goes on leverage, he beefs up his position. He said it was like 70% of his portfolio because, I'll beef up a trade if it's trending lower because I know the market is wrong and it's discounting it for the wrong reasons. Like it was calling Axon a software play. Robinhood got caught up in all the crypto meltdown. So it got down into the 70s and 60s, but whether crypto's going up or down, people are trading it. And that's Robinhood's whole thing. They make money by people doing more trading, and that's only trending upwards. More of retail's investing. The great wealth transfer is going to be huge for them. They keep launching all these new products. So that's what I love where, I take the fundamental first approach. And when the technicals actually speak like, hey, this is moving in the right direction now, that's when it's like, okay, I like to add on the way up because, it's like the old David Gardner saying, water the flower, pull the weeds. Like if it's going up, that's when I want to keep adding and enjoy that ride higher.
So, Nick, go through some of the stocks you wanted to touch on today. And if you want, I don't know if you have a chart that you want to show. If you hit that little plus sign at the bottom,
yeah, sure.
You can share your screen and take my ugly face to the side here if you need.
Now we showed Nick in his element.
Yeah, this is what people want. They want to get the alpha, have some very smart people justify their trades here. But no, Joey, I think you bring up, you've taught me so much. Over the years of just like, I always go back even to the All In podcast, like let your winners ride, and so I've seen it over and over again where the good stocks and I talk endlessly about my NVIDIA trade. I thought 3X was good, sold out of that early, way too early. Palantir, way too early. And just find, and like when the winners just keep winning, they're going to just keep winning. Find the company in that space, right? So
Yeah, so like Nick's going to talk about shortly. I know he'll probably bring up CrowdStrike. Now, I've owned this since 2019. I've got a 1,107.09% return at the time. And like the fundamentals are strong. This thing is an absolute growth machine. I bought it because I thought it was the gold standard in cybersecurity. Now, you could have made an argument for several other players, but to find a company growing as fast as it was, already free cash flow positive, and to see what it's become today, like this is just the situation of let winners run. And my original cost basis was, I think, in the 47s. I added in the upper 90s when it pulled back, I think during the COVID meltdown. So, that's a blended cost basis of 61.95. But, this is one that I almost added to during, when they had that big outage and it fell into the 200s. I almost added there, but I didn't. It's just one of those situations where if you've got the best in class growth stock, don't be afraid to add to it just because, you're stuck on that cost basis. So I don't want to see it go up. It's like, at that point, you could look at each individual lot. Like, what your original return was on that one. But Nick, take it away.
Yeah, no. I think from my perspective and my point of view, it's, it's really kind of taking a top-down approach. So starting with the monthly and then heading all the way down to the daily. I'm using the monthly primarily to identify like the dominant trend. So if I was a long-term investor in Crowd, it's really kind of about, again, your tool belt and the kind of tips and tricks that you have to kind of build into a position. So if I'm looking at at Crowd, for instance, on the monthly time frame, like it's pretty, you'd have to be honestly pretty dumb to say that we're not in a confirmed uptrend here. We're putting in higher lows and, we're obviously in all-time highs here. Once you start to scale down and kind of like, head down to the weekly, these little things that are confirming how strong this is. We just put in a 3 to 4 week tight on the rising, basically on the rising 10 week that's catching up to price. I can't remember what I had. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the 5 week. And then the 10 week is trailing. You head down to the daily and, these names, Crowd is just one of them. But if you pull, we can go through Crowd, Datadog, and Net. They all look, it still has to kind of take out this high, but it's provided a real tight entry, both kind of in this chop here. It was kind of confirmed on Friday, which honestly, if you were coming from a fresh entry, it probably would have felt a little nerve-wracking to kind of hold it over the weekend, but you definitely got confirmation today through the 712 and then kind of into the gap here through 717. It's like just such a basic, again, on the daily, it's just such a basic pattern where it's, A, B, C, and D. You can measure it out by just kind of pulling that back. That puts you at a measured move about 950 in a short term on a short term basis. So,
Crowd's always been a name. Joey knows that was like one of my first big winners. I bought it in the 60s. I've never sold, and it's just like to me, it's the simplest thematic.
Also,
right?
both of you guys are still sitting on this.
Yeah,
dude, hell yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I haven't. I didn't add as much as I should have, so my percentage gains are great. The dollar amount's solid. Good. Yeah. Good, not great. But for me, it's the simplest thematic possible. Right? It's like you find the best winner in a space that's never going to go away. Like if anything, like as AI and bots and that, you're going to need more and more security, and companies can't afford not to have security. And I haven't done enough research lately on CrowdStrike, but you'd imagine that they're on top of this AI game, right? And they're finding ways to manage bots. What was the other one, Joey? ZNet or what's the one that's like really good with the bots?
The relative strength in a lot of these names relative to just, the IGV was unfucking real.
Yeah.
So one of the cool things to kind of go back on with CrowdStrike. So if you look at this, it came public 2019, 2020, grew revenues at 93%. And what I love is that it was free cash flow positive. So it only had a 4.1% margin. But for a company growing that fast to be free cash flow positive, is just a major, a green flag from a fundamental standpoint. And then you see it, 2021 growing 81% with a 33% margin. This thing still in 2026, 22% top line at a 26% free cash flow margin. And now that free cash flow margin, I mean, it's going to get upwards, into the upper 30s. So this is still a growth machine. Now, the valuation, it's never been a cheap stock, and it's pretty expensive even now. But that's why I like that we have such a low cost basis that, we can take the 30% swings and it not be an issue. But technically speaking, I love when, it sets up and Nick's talking 900s. It's like, yeah, I'll take that all day.
Yeah. Go ahead, Nick.
No, I don't have even a retort to that.
I was trying to find your tweet to me that said the other stocks we wanted to touch on today. This is our first time, folks. I think it's like a relationship. As we have more and more of these.
I'll add to what Avi was saying. So, I was on a podcast. We had a couple different Stocktwits podcasts last year, but CrowdStrike was in this massive drawdown because it was seen as, AI was going to be a threat to CrowdStrike. But I was on this saying, that's the wrong way to think about it, because if you consider all these employees at these massive corporations adding Claude, ChatGPT, whatever to their computers, it makes each of those devices a risk to the company. Like if they put sensitive information on there that they shouldn't have, it's more of a risk. So if anything, I thought CrowdStrike and these other cybersecurity players would become more important than ever before. And that seems to be what is playing out right now. Like these companies need to be spending more on cybersecurity, not less. And something my good friend Jason Moser over at the Motley Fool would always say is, companies can't afford to not spend in this space. Like you'll never see a company that's cutting back. You'll see people cutting headcount. They could cut, they could cut marketing spend and stuff. They will not cut a cybersecurity budget, because then, a breach happens and that's not going to be good for them at all.
Yeah. I mean, even looking at my prediction with Dell was, I was like, the banks and some of these like privacy companies, they're not going to be renting from like my favorite stock at NBIS, right? They're going to be, they're coming back on prem because of those same security risks. Right. And at the end of the day, the thematic, this theme's never going to go away in terms of security, cybersecurity. So what do we see? Yeah. You pulled it up. So
I mean, cybersecurity just seems like common sense to me.
Yeah.
Like Facebook changed its name to the fucking metaverse. So it's like, it just seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
All like, I don't know.
You pulled up Nebius, which in any red day, I said the internet's broken or something's wrong with my my portfolio, because it's just been nonstop going up. I mean, they'll have the little dips. It's probably, if I was a trader, I feel like this is one of the best stocks to trade, because it just goes up or down 5-10% a day. It feels like.
The melt up trades, I find at times can be easy. I suppose, like if I'm finding myself in the flow or in the zone. Other times, melt up trades can be kind of frustrating. I think a lot of these kind of growth, high flyer, momentum, whatever you want to call them, they definitely all have a personality to them. And if you vibe with it, and again, like kind of probably on a more technical side, if you vibe with it, you vibe with it. But yeah, it certainly is a pretty trend.
What are you seeing on the chart though? Like moving forward, because I did trim some and move it to Amazon, and Joey tells me to trim every day.
I don't know if there's any reason for you to necessarily sell right now. It's just kind of in a melt mode. And, right here, it's in a range. You had a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, again, 5 weeks of tight closes here. It looks to me like it's ready for continuation. So I wouldn't be taking any off the table here if it was me, but.
Okay.
Yeah. See, my whole thing was, we were talking about this back at Stocktoberfest, and it was, I think it was like mid to low 90s. And my whole point was like, I wanted to put on a large position. I thought it was going closer to 200. I didn't see it going all the way to 300. So of course I have my trims along the way. So how I treat it is, I've always entered this as a trade, and I don't like to get married to my trades. So like I would essentially trim along the way, and then use those profits and use that cash to then put in a very high conviction play. The ones that, Avi calls it a beach stock, the ones that you can, go to the beach, sleep well at night, not have to worry about. So that's where it's like, yeah, trim here and put this into a Robinhood, or trim here and put this into, like an Amazon, Meta, Google, even Microsoft as of last week. So yeah, it's not trimming because you think it's going to crash and go low or go back to like the hundreds or something along those lines, but more so
just a cash
take
flow.
a successful trade and put it into that high conviction play.
Mm-hmm. Can you hit the Amazon chart actually? Because Chris Camillo and yourself, and like for me too, it's been, if you go on like the 5-year, it's like, damn, this is really not that good of an invest, because it's only like.
Well, that's the great part about this is
crazy.
Now you got Amazon trading at, its cheapest valuation in years. And you look at the top line growth. Yes, they're spending a ton, but it's because they have to. And I always look at Amazon, like if they turned off all of that spend, I mean, this could be spewing free cash flow if they wanted to. It's just they know if they don't spend, it'd be a disservice to the company long term. And the great part about them is they're the number 3 advertising company by revenue. It goes Google, Meta, and then Amazon now. They're talking about now selling their chips externally, which would be as large of a chip business, they were saying, as AMD. They've got the largest logistics company, the largest online marketplace. Like Amazon, each individual unit is so massive that when you're talking about the sum of the parts, and that's not even mentioning AWS, like to look at their market cap as opposed to all the other market caps of players at similar spaces, I just think Amazon, I mean, this is destined for well over 300.
Yeah. What I love about it too is they're the one weakest in terms of like it's funny because everyone thinks of Amazon. If you go on the street and ask someone what Amazon is, they'll turn to the marketplace, right? Like the average consumer. And like that's the one that they make the least margins on today. But as the robotics get more involved, right? And as AI, that was what Camillo was talking about. It was like they're going to get the benefits of the AI downstream cost savings on a massive scale. And so my guess is that component of their business will continue to see better and better margins as they sadly probably retire a lot of these people working in their plants and then put robots in there that don't sleep, they don't cost benefits, they don't, they're working nonstop. And they're already starting to do some of that today, but I think it's really going to start to play out. And yeah, like you said, they're number 1 in many categories, number 3 in another category. And so for me, it feels like a beach stock. And I think they're due for an explosion at some point. They have to. They've been sitting for a little bit, but this chart's looking opposite of what I'm saying. So maybe I'm wrong.
No, I love the chart. Like, again, from a much larger time frame, you basically have a base on base here and a monster fucking base.
Oh, this is
this candle right here. I think so long as we close the month, like we kind of push strong into the end of the month, and you get the close here. I really like the look of this candle, and you're getting again higher lows. I know it's I would agree with you. It's a beach stock, and I think before the market overall, like really does start to top out, I really think all the mag names are basically beach stocks. I don't think you're going to necessarily outperform, but at least your money's parked in a name that goes 5x from here over the next probably 5 to what year are we? 2026. What year is it? 2026. Yeah, I mean, like ultimately, I mean, personally, I think this market is kind of topping out. 2031, 2033 is kind of where I think time wise goes. So
yeah, I mean it's
beach stock.
Yeah. I mean, eventually, it's been hot. We've been running hot. We had that one Friday, maybe 3 weeks ago, a month ago, that humbled a lot of us, right? Where it's just like,
Dude, I think last week is what humbled all of us, like everybody.
Yeah. Well, I was on a bachelor party and I did not see it. And I woke up this morning. I was like, damn, I should got wrecked over on Thursday and Friday. But yeah, I mean, the market humbles you quite a bit. Just when you think, I always say it's the screenshot when you start seeing a lot of screenshots from your friends.
Oh God. Yeah.
sell everything. You know, like,
Yeah.
and I never do, but it's always been the indicator for me. I'm like, okay, if all my friends who don't even trade stocks, you know, often or talk about them often are sending me screenshots, I'm like, all right, that's my indicator of when to like really check yourself and trim.
I fall into the like when I want to start like showing my wife my P&L. I'm not a huge like I'm
That you never do.
really adamant about not like swinging my dick on the internet because it's just it's a pressure that I don't want, and I don't know, I've moved past that.
Yeah.
It just, yeah, I don't know. I end up making poor decisions, and just as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing that you know, happened to a lot of people. Now, luckily, I had left FinTwit in like February 2021, which was just absolute perfect timing. That's when everybody was posting all the screenshots. Everybody's launching stock picking services because they're the next great stock picker. You could just kind of tell.
Bibles.
Yeah, you could tell the music was getting a little too loud, and it's like it feels like we were overstaying that party. And of course, we kind of got that meltdown. But that's why, you know, everybody's almost got like PTSD from those days, and that's where, you know, everybody's talking about NBIS in the neo clouds right now, to where, you know, I don't want to be the one that's kind of caught in a major drawdown. And it's like, look, we're crushing the market using stocks like this. I'm okay with, you know, it's probably going to like match the market, maybe a little bit better than the market by going into an Amazon or some of the Mag 7, but it's more so protecting those gains and sleeping better at night. Now, I'd go back to like Google a year and a half ago or something like that. It got to where it's like 16, 17 times earnings. It was seen as the AI loser. Same what Chris Camillo was talking about with Amazon when it got, you know, it missed on earnings or its CapEx was too high. It goes to like 199, 200 range. And he thought that was wrong. You're getting those similar situations with Meta, not so much Amazon because it is positive on the year still. But, you know, Meta's in this major drawdown, essentially. Now, you look at the forward multiple on that. That thing is incredibly inexpensive. And now you actually got Microsoft last week, where it got to the same situation, where it's at its cheapest valuation it's been at in years. To where, you know, I already have a large Meta position from years ago. But Microsoft I had to add on just because I feel like you could say a lot about Copilot or anything else like that, but I've got a lot of friends that work for the government in like cybersecurity, and they're like, Microsoft Sentinel is, you know, there's no getting away from that. It's a massive player in the space. Copilot's a lot bigger than I even thought. And then you look at Azure, and it's, you know, Azure is going to be one of the key components of everything to do with AI because everybody needs more compute capacity. And, you know, you just look at the growth rate on Azure, I would think it's upper 30s, and that could actually accelerate based on all this demand from LLMs, and not even talking Reddit yet. But I love the Mag 7 plays when they get beaten down and start trading at these very inexpensive valuations because, you know, entering Microsoft at 356.89. It's like, okay, I might lose 5 to 10% more, but the upside could be 30, 40% if this just normalizes. Not even going back to its previous highs, but just going back to a reasonable multiple on the stock.
What are you seeing on this Reddit chart? I'm not a chart. I'm all heart. We're seeing higher lows though on that.
Yeah, on the larger time again, kind of back to the weekly. It's like a giant ascending triangle, which it's a bullish pattern. It implies higher prices. Price again, you got like all these tight closes on the weekly. To me, it looks like price is coiled and it's really ready to kind of rip out of here. Obviously, the overall market has to kind of, you know, cooperate. It's not gonna be breaking out if, you know, the indices are getting absolutely hammered. But it looks good here. I initially had this drawn thinking it was going to build out like somewhat of a, you know, what they call kind of an island bottom. You didn't really like get an island because there wasn't much of a gap here or really anywhere except for up there. But it still looks good. And it's kind of flagging again on the short term. I've been beaten up a little bit and kind of got chopped up in here. So I don't even have Reddit on currently, but I did set alerts at, I think I set alerts at 180, and I know I had alerts at 190 as well. I think the trade really gets going through 190. But
Yeah. I mean, and
Might
Joe,
take on it.
Joe, you can talk about this better than I can, but like we've talked about this a few times. The two major catalysts are Anthropic is not going to IPO, in my opinion, with a lawsuit still pending. So we think they're going to settle there. And then I don't know the dates on when they're renewing with, was it Mike? Who are they renewing with? Google for sure. And then Meta?
Gemini and OpenAI. Those
OpenAI,
are both
sorry.
for renewal over the next, I think it's over the next like 8-10 months. And those are supposed to renew significantly higher than, I think it was like 60 million a year before. I don't know. I forget. I think it's RBC or someone said they could get upwards of $500 million in their renewals. So the cool thing about that is it just goes straight to the bottom line. But even then, you're looking at this stock, it's trading at 23 times its forward earnings. And this is going to grow earnings at a 56% cap in 2026. I've just, anytime I find these hyper growth stocks trading at a discount to what I would consider a reasonable multiple, that's when I load up. And, I think I've added multiple times where the cost base is in like the 120s. But even from 2026 growing at 56, this is going to grow at 28%, 23%. Free cash flow margins are continuing to expand. It's going to push north of 40% in 2028. Like, this is an absolute free cash flow machine. A lot of marketing spend is being switched over to Reddit. They keep launching these new tools to make their ROAS more attractive to advertisers. I just love the fundamental case for this company, and that it's still relatively small compared to how big I think it could get, say 10 years from now.
How about the, I don't know if it was them hearing me talking about it, but I sent you the email I got like right after we got done talking about Reddit. I was like, damn, and advertisers, they're coming after like even SMBs and trying to get our podcast, to start advertising onto Reddit. So yeah, it's one that like it's kind of like the forgotten social media, I feel like in many ways, but it is the like if I'm looking for a new restaurant, I type in, the city I'm in, Reddit reviews, because I feel like they're still the most
really?
honest review. Yeah. Maybe it's just a weird thing I do, but I always feel like that's the most like honest reviews. And I don't know if they've done a good job with bots.
I mean, I gotta get on the Reddit train. I think I've never.
No, so during Prime Day, I did that same thing because I was looking for, like a head shaver, and I saw, all these different ones start popping up. So I was like, all right, of course they're gonna show you the reviews that they want you to see. And I brought up this Reddit thread, which was just all bald dudes talking about which one, and they were like, nope. And I ended up ordering nothing because I was like, all right, I much more prefer reading honest reviews from people that aren't getting paid for it than, you never really know with those Amazon reviews and what's on there. So I always just cross-reference with what people are honestly saying on Reddit. It's like, yeah, I'm not ordering any of these. I'll stick to the razor.
I'm going to start getting ads to join that subreddit soon. The bald dudes of Reddit. Anyways, moving on. What other stocks did you hit me up on? RBRK, I think, was one.
Yeah, it's kind of a more recent kind of cybersecurity play. I like it. I think it's kind of coiled, and it was kind of curling right up against the 200-day after it kind of broke out of here. Just another ABCD leg higher. I love when zooming in, zooming out. I love when short-term patterns imply kind of a much larger time frame breakout. I think you get monster moves out of trades like that. So, if this plays out, it's kind of putting your measured move just within this ABCD back up to 100. Ideally, as it pushes up to 100, we get price kind of tightens up, pauses a little bit, give some of us the opportunity to kind of leg in before it really rips out of this IPO base. But yeah, just another one on there.
SpaceX, because I feel like that's been obviously the most talked about stock.
Yeah.
Crazy moves up, down. I feel like most IPOs do something like this, but this one was really interesting because the multiples were insane. I did say, I think off the IPO, because everyone was saying, and there's no way it's worth that valuation. I was like, if everyone's saying no, it's going to pop. And then now I'm wrong, or it's going to starting to come down, but now popping back up.
I think you have a trade here just versus the lows, and the the risk reward here is pretty easily identifiable. If it takes out lows, you're gone. If it takes off, you've got a cost basis that's down here at the low end of the range. The rest of the names in the space are looking as though they kind of bottomed out on Friday, between ASTS and Rocket Labs. I think those two are kind of the more leaders in the space, but I think there's a trade here in SpaceX. I don't have anything against it. I don't have when it comes to numbers and valuations and again, all that kind of stuff, it really just, it doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
So,
the more interesting one with the SpaceX exposure, which now it's trending number 1 on Stocktwits, is Tesla. Like this thing, it's having a hell of a day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
It feels ready to because it's look at that hold down. Yeah. So that's another one I've held on to for forever. And there's a lot of exciting catalysts coming up for Tesla, but it's got the Elon Musk premium,
He's not a guy that I'd want to bet against.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I love Tesla. I understand that it's, frustrating perhaps for a lot of real long-term bulls. But at the same time, dude, fuck, if you were in this thing from, I think most long-term guys were involved in this run. So to see it kind of go sideways in the amount of time that it has, I think, I frustrating. Yes, should be somewhat to be expected, I think.
Yeah. Is it coiling up, do you think, for a big leg up again, or?
I think it is. I think that this is just just kind of biding its time here. I don't want to quite say beach ball or even basketball underwater. But it's putting in higher lows. And it's going to go when it kind of wants to go. I think it's one of those names that obviously has its own it's going to do whatever the fuck it wants to do, and it's going to do it whenever it wants to do it, despite whatever the market is doing. So yeah.
What pisses me off about this one, so I owned Solar City back when Tesla acquired them, and following the acquisition, I sold it, and this was 2016. It was an all stock transaction. SCTY, yeah. SCTY. So had I just let it convert from Solar City into Tesla shares, that thing would be up.
Oh, shit,
several thousand%.
Yeah.
I mean, they're due for a Cybertruck. I don't think did as well as people thought, and I think they're gonna probably come back with a new one. They got Optimus coming out as well, but they're really, I mean, everyone on the street probably thinks they're a car company, and they're not. They're like an energy company, and it's fascinating, and like a lot of that stuff hasn't really fully played out to the masses quite yet, but it's coming. And you think about, I was just driving in my buddy's Tesla. Those things are still the coolest cars, in my opinion.
Dude, they are. Dude,
so
GP
cool.
picked me and Ben up in New York when we were out there, and the thing drove us to the airport. Dude, it was so sick.
It's
I
incredible.
don't know how you could be a hater of a freaking.
Feel safer. It's me and my friend were talking about this. Like both of our parents are like, "What happens if it goes to the?" But Joey, one of your stocks you talked about a lot is Lemonade did a whole research on this. As an insurance company, they wanted to, and it was clear as day that it's safer than humans.
See, I just want FSC to become like the norm, to where I've got a 10-year-old now. At least by the time all my kids are driving, because the way these kids are addicted to their devices and stuff, just staring at their phones. I mean, I even see people in their 50s and 60s just staring at their phone, driving like this. We need it more than ever, because people are just terrible drivers. They're stupid. They're all distracted. Like, I much prefer.
Yeah. Up here in the cities, I mean, like, there's so many kids that just don't even want to get their driver's license. I'd feel safer putting my kid in a self-driving Tesla cab than some random Uber driver. In fact, I don't think you can't even take an Uber if you're under 18.
Really?
Not on your own.
Interesting.
Yeah, you've got like the Uber teen accounts you can get now. But hey, that's another division of Amazon. They got Zooks, which they've got. Amazon's got their hands in everything.
I called this in college. I was drunk one night, and I remember writing it on my fraternity wall. It's like, one day we're gonna laugh that people got in car accidents, because it like what we're saying, it's actually gonna like save lives. And my kid's 2.5, so I'm not thinking about her driving yet, but it is in the back of my mind as kids are like on their phone. I'd rather see kids hunked over sleeping and having a robot driving them, because it's unbelievable. And being in the car, watching it like go in front and cross lanes, and it's just like, this thing is magical, and they're light years ahead of everyone else, I feel like, in that capacity.
Dude, you're from the Twin Cities. The 35W 394 94 intersection just south there of Minneapolis is hell. Yeah, dude, if we were full blown autonomous, I feel like rush hour and
traffic would be way better.
Way better.
I always thought that it'd be too costly, but I thought it'd be like a cool if the highways were just moving walkways at one point. It's just like, and you get off and you're off that, but like, it is crazy how that plays out. So I agree, Joey. I think eventually in 10 years, maybe 15 years from now, it'll be pretty ubiquitous to have full self-driving, technology.
One more we got to bring up is Robinhood, because that's one that I was even beefing up last week as it dipped back into the low 90s.
Yeah.
When I do a lot of shit talking, I like to joke that the 10-day EMA is a gift from God. On a shorter time frame, that 10-day exponential moving average, just for whatever reason, seems to act as kind of a backfill magnet. So from a short term, from a short time frame, whether you're day trading or swing trading, you get that pullback to the 10-day, fucking add to it. Like, you may not quite bottom ticket, and then on the something that I kind of took from another guy that we shoot the shit with, when you see price kind of take out the prior day's low or kind of a pivot low, you can kind of bet that price is going to pull back to that 10-day. Obviously it took it, price took it out right here, but we put it in a gulfer on Friday on some volume, and now we're starting to see some follow through. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Joey, but it was one that was on my radar too coming into today.
Yeah, I just love this company. So that's where I look at, I've got the brokerage account. My kids all have their custodial accounts, got the IRA, got the credit card, got the bank account, everything to where.
And prediction markets. They basically are the app I wanted to create. I always said, I wish I could just take my sports betting gains, which is very rare, and just put them in. Or my initial app was, if you lose a bet, you're automatically, instead of giving it to DraftKings or something, you're forced to put that back into an investment account, and so
yeah,
there's kind of this cool feedback loop. I have a buddy, Drew. He does his predictions, and when he wins it, it's one click away from then putting it back into your investment account. On the other side, you don't want people putting their 401k money on a World Cup game, but it is cool. It's like the everything app. I mean, it's almost, it's getting to that investment, like everything app, which is amazing.
Well, that's the thing. They're becoming that finance super app. Like I can, I pay the credit card. It's got the same bank account, so it instantly does it. If I want to move cash from the bank to my brokerage, it's just instant. Like all finance just sits right there.
You think there's a world where Robinhood like takes over Stocktwits or some other kind of social media platform?
I mean, so I got one of the early invites to Robinhood Social, and it's pretty trash. Sure. So, it is a situation where, an acquisition makes sense. Howard, our CEO and founder, he was the first check-in Robinhood. So I know he's close to those guys. I think I love Stocktwits as it is, so I'd rather it not. But for a company like Robinhood, I could see where it'd make perfect sense if they wanted to take the social side serious. The current product they have is not that, and that's the thing. Like, you've seen a lot of different social media companies try to tackle investors. and they just can't go toe to toe with what we do at Stocktwits. It's just, we've got too large of a community. The platform's getting better every single day. Like, and everything Howard and team have in the works, like no one's catching us.
Yeah. I love Stocktwits for the fact that it's not Twitter. You know, you go on Twitter and you feel like you got to put on like you're going into war almost every time you hop on Twitter.
Or you either gotta,
okay, let's invest in. I can take a break for a second, breathe, you know?
Yeah. I don't always need to know what's going on in the world of politics, or, you know, what parades are happening in what city. It's like,
I try to
just
remind
want to
myself
know.
and keep it.
I just want to know.
Separate.
Yeah.
I
want to know why Tesla's surging.
At my bachelor party, it wasn't my bachelor party, but my friend's bachelor party. It was all my friends from high school. And so it was like almost like a mini reunion. And I was guilty of this during COVID. I'd be like scrolling constantly and like in this, you know, and I was just became like obsessive. And I had this realization where my wife always reminds me, she's like my yin and yang. She's like, control what you can get. You know, I say control what you can control, but I'm like, do you not care about all this stuff? I still do it to this day. And she'll always be like, nope, I'm focused on my daughter, on you and my family. And like at the end of the day, you know, you can only control so much. And if you're going to go die on the hill for something, like you're dead, you know, so like make sure we have 100 years here. So just focus on your family and things that are concerning, which is it's hard for me in anyone that's doing the stock market, because you kind of have to read the news and see what's going on, but filter how much it affects your cortisol levels. I'll say that.
Yeah, 100%.
Joey, is there and I'm usually on the hook for this, so next week I will bring a mini monster, but is there anything that you're watching that's like and this could be for you too, you guys have like an asymmetric bet that you're looking at right now that not a lot of people are maybe talking about yet, or and you don't need you can say you either bought it or you didn't, but something you're watching as a potential mini monster? This was live, so don't feel obligated if you don't have one.
No, so I mean, in this type of market, I'm not really looking for, you know, the tiny company that could 10x in a year. I feel like a lot of that is past us. Kind of like, you know, finding the Nebius at 90 and it runs to 250, wherever it is now. I feel like a lot of that has already been sucked out of the market. Some of the plays I'm looking at is, you know, like the Nebiuses, kind of like the data center plays that have not been working out of late. So like Oracle falling under 150 today. I mean, it's just been a bloodbath over the last 2 weeks now. Same with CoreWeave. So like those are two data center specific plays that I was looking at that have not been keeping up with the pack, that are now CoreWeave does have a pretty solid debt load, so it's not ideal. And same with Oracle. You know, they've taken on a lot of debt because they have this massive build out coming, but that backlog is massive, to where if they figure it out and they do everything right, like I feel like Oracle might be one of those very attractive plays that I would almost regret not buying under 150, say a year from now.
They're a friend of Trump's as well, right? We were talking about the Trump trades.
Yeah, they got what, Stargate or whatever, that $500 billion investment with SoftBank, Oracle, and OpenAI. Larry Ellison is quite close with the White House, and I think that also played a major role in the whole Netflix, Paramount, Skydance debacle that happened.
Yeah. Can you pull up Cisco? What are your thoughts on Cisco? These are all kind of like the Oracles, the Ciscos of the world.
Cisco,
how's that?
right.
I got a 12/16 call option on that. So for December.
I mean, you could call it a high tight flag. You could call it a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks of tight weekly closes. When I refer to the weekly close, it's what I call kind of more of like napkin technicals, where it's just you've got to identify the close, and it's kind of a sloppy looking bull flag, right? But price is high and tight. It looks to me, it looks ripe for continuation. I think kind of same idea to the hack trades I suggested, just taking an A, B, C, you know, that puts your measured move, at least in the near term, at 160, pending you get the breakout here. But with how tight you got these weekly closes, that's showing the kind of the institutional involvement here and the underlying strength. So, you know, if you're not in this, you could use last week's candle as kind of your entry, either versus the low, through the high. You know, if you want to be real conservative and kind of wait until 127 gets taken out. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to kind of play it, but yeah, it looks great.
Yeah. You know, one that I saw you post on Stocktwits earlier, and I responded with the funny GIF with the toast with the butter.
Oh yeah, dude,
is
it trades like shit though. God damn.
Yeah. Wow. The growth is always impressive. I mean, I go to a bunch of different restaurants. Whenever I see like the toast terminal come over for me to pay, I always think, oh, let's look at the stock. And it's never. It had that massive run from like 14 to 48, and then it just came crashing back down. The payment space is just so tough. Like you look Shift4, PayPal, all these different like niche players within payments just never seem to work out. But this is one I'm always watching. So that's when I saw you post it, I was like, all right, let's ask him about it.
I was involved. I don't really remember where. I did decently well with it. I mean, ultimately I got chopped out. It was the reason it kind of popped up on the radar was I'm pretty sure it was, you know, everybody was kind of obsessed with Druck at the time, myself included. And I want to say it was kind of in this area if I had to, I don't know, guess, but it put in kind of a big stage 1 base. And when you had this descending channel, that's just kind of a slow drift, slow grind, kind of back. I wouldn't really want to see price kind of revert too much into the base or into the range, but from where it's sitting currently, you'd have to have some conviction, I think, to kind of play this, because there's better looking setups out there. You know, take your pick from anything that we kind of discussed. I pay attention to it just because I've traded it, but not because I want to necessarily get involved. You know, wake me up over 30.
Yeah. Doesn't seem like an intent. Like we live in such an attention economy right now, you know. And I feel like who gets excited about
ripping, I don't want it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like you're even seeing with Cerebras right now, because apparently, I know it's Sam Altman or someone. Yeah, CBRS. I made that mistake. CRBS. They made this ticker wrong. But
ticker matters, Joey. I always said,
yeah, CBRS, Cerberus. Cerberus would make sense for this one. But I think if Sam Altman was talking about, you know, one of the next iterations of ChatGPT will have this specific speed, and the speed he said would only be Cerebras chips if that played out. So I think that's what the hype is today. But to see it go from 160 and quickly, I mean, I was looking at this as it was about to break 200 earlier. I was like, oh, I should throw a trade on, and then I didn't. Next thing I checked, it was like 6. Yeah. Next thing I checked, it was 216. But
maybe that's the name of the podcast we go with, the Hindsight Capital. We got to think of a fun.
Yeah.
I always wanted to create.
Well, it was the time. If it was the timing of it, if we would have gone on pre-market, we would have had the same name. So
yeah.
You know.
It is. Yeah, if you started a fund where you get mulligans. We were doing a lot of golf this weekend, and I was like, I wish you could do this an investment, a breakfast bowl.
I mean, hey, in Cerebras, like you have the entry here at 196, 200, reclaiming this pivot low. Just another, like, you know, it's not to say like if we get some backfill towards 200, just take the entry, you know, later this week, or chances are we're gonna get some kind of fuckery tomorrow. It's a Tuesday, so after a strong Monday, so. I don't think people should feel obligated to chase. I think if you can identify that, you know, 195, 200 was a solid entry, just throw your alert there. And if you get the backfill, take the entry, take the entry. So
what, are you trading like weeklies mostly, or are you doing
pure equity? I don't mess with options whatsoever. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. Smart man.
I mean, how I kind of got my start, you know, prop trading, like I don't know, risk has kind of like been beaten into me, and I've kind of come into my own as far as like my style and strategy. So I just don't really feel the necessary to kind of like, you know, fuck with it too much. I do think that there's a room in in what I do for options. I don't know. I'm not there yet.
I'll say it for myself.
See, it just takes so much thinking.
Yeah. And you're
Yeah,
fighting
like,
premium, you're fighting too much shit, if you are.
Yeah, if I see something I like and it's like, okay, I want to put this on, but then I got to go research, okay, now what options play do I want to make? It's just all these added steps, and I've never had great success in options to where it's like it follows the KISS method. Just keep it simple, stupid. Like if you like this company, buy it. And then, you don't have all the other additional risk that comes with options. Like if I think Amazon's going over 300, but I pick the wrong options, the wrong strike, the wrong miss, it could not it could just be a waste of cash.
Did you know that not 40 anymore guy on Stocktwits?
I don't.
Dude, you should look him up just when you have a second. So fucking crabby all the time. And he'd come on to Stocktwits and basically just troll anybody that was day trading. Anybody that was day trading or dooming, he would just perpetually get into arguments. And a big thing that I took away from him was, the idea between dollar cost averaging and the ability to sell options at, a later date. Like you guys are in crowd, for instance, right? Like just to go sell options against your position. It's like, are any of these degenerates letting these positions these contracts get called? I don't think so. So it's just like, basically, the way the internet goes, dooming gets all the attention. So if you're in a huge crowd position and you're just selling, I don't know I can't remember the technical name of the option contract, but like, dude, you know how many dudes on the internet were fighting this whole breakout, considering the IGV was getting smoked? It was something that I took away from him, and for you being on there, I think you should look him up sometime. He hasn't been on forever, but I don't know why.
It is fun. I went to your Stocktwits, and Stocktoberfest is going to be in New York this week, you said, or this year?
Yeah.
Yep.
Dude, you're gonna come, or you should come?
Yeah,
hang
I'm
out.
gonna come, and maybe we do even a live. I don't know if we'll have time to do like a live show from it, but that'd be kind of fun.
Dude, yeah, let's do it.
Because it's just fun. You meet all the people in real life, and they all have these like crazy, handles that they hide behind their computers, and then you meet them in real life. Some are cool, some are weirdos, but it's fun.
I'll try to get Chris Camillo to come on. Be like, hey, just talk to us about Amazon and just fan.
Is he coming to Stocktoberfest?
He was like the main one I was hitting Howard. I was like, make sure he comes back because his panel this past Oktoberfest was one of my favorite.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a super sharp guy and very like logical. He went on that. I think I talked about it 100 times on this podcast, but like the one he was just on maybe a month ago with the iced coffee.
Oh yeah. Iced coffee. Yeah. I watched that one. He talked Amazon, Robinhood and some other ones. So yeah, that was a good one.
Love it. Well, we've set aside an hour here, so we'll wrap this up here. But hopefully we make this a weekly thing. This was fun. We'll make sure it's a little smoother next time too, and maybe have some fun segments that we can put in. We'll do like a mini monster that I can come in, try to pitch you guys on. You'll check out the charts, JFDI. Joey will come in and tell me if I'm right or wrong here. But that's fun, and then we can think of some other cool segments, and we'll think of a name. Hindsight Capital is the leading name right now.
Yeah, all right.
So, anyways, have a great week, everyone. We are going to be back here tomorrow. I have Will Reeves, who's the CEO of Fold, which is a public company. Let's maybe throw that chart up there too. And then a friend of mine is creating a really great app called Get Chump. And I was like, this is so cool. I'll actually bring it on the podcast, but it's he didn't want to fight the app system, especially right now. What's happening to try to get onto like the Apple App Store, it's near impossible because everyone's vibe coding everything, and they're probably doing the smart thing of like making sure that these apps are secure and whatnot. So he went straight to text, and his whole thing is plugging in with your credit cards. And I have this issue. You swipe so much throughout the day, especially I was telling him with my Apple Pay. Before you're spending all this money. It's so you never think about it. So it goes through at the end of the day, and it gives you a report basically on your text of like everything you spent, where you spent it. Yeah, and it's pretty cool. I'm bringing him on, and then our boy Problem Sniper, great options trader. So if you ever do options, I kind of just stick to what he shares with me. But
yeah, he's a freak. I love that guy.
He's amazing. Very humble. He's got very interesting friends. He hangs with a different level of crew. He's like, my friend made 100 million, and I'm like, oh shit, I need new friends. Anyway,
Well, his thing is, he's got his system. He's got his system. He sticks to it and doesn't go out of it.
There's days he just I don't see anything, and he won't trade, and that's
I
like
don't.
that.
You never force it. It's like some days you just sit on your hands, do nothing.
I love it. All right, boys. First episode in the books. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll be back next week. We'll have to figure it out if it's 12:30 or 1:30 I'd like to do 12:30, but we'll figure that out. So see everyone tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern. We'll be live.